exciting ones tonight. Frank Berry over here. Everyone, let's give it up for Frank.
I'm sorry.
He's the official cameraman, and of course I didn't inform him when I was coming on stage a couple times, but now I must give him time. I won't say bad things, while you're filming, because he's, But he is filming all the performances, and just so you know, they're going to go up. Snippets are going to be on the website, theartismagazine.com, and that's all. It's good for everyone, so promo for everyone. And Frank Berry is also one of the contributors in the magazine and on the board of directors. I have to tell you a little story about him, but I'm not sure, Frank. Are you going to come on stage tonight?
I didn't know, first of all. It's news to me.
Well,
so,
we just do things fly by night around here.
Is it?
Yeah.
Do it, Jay.
I'll come up if you want, but you're going to be sorry. That's all
Well, we'll see. But his essay, his little op-ed piece in the magazine, I'll tell you a little story about it later. And in the intermission, he's gonna film. We're just gonna do a few little interviews where I'm, just talking to the artists, like 1-minute things. So just letting all the artists know that you're probably gonna see me coming around, or one of us coming around and saying, "How did you like it?" Something like that. But let's kick off the night. I want to say we got 2 more additions into the raffle. Catherine Thompson, who is right here in the red shirt. She is an artist that's been supporting the 905 community for a long time. And so her latest CD, which is called Cool Cat, she's a poet and an a cappella singer. Her daughter has actually made it to Hollywood.
Oh, yeah?
Start along with it. Yeah, absolutely. So Catherine comes from a background of actors. Her daughter has a lot of pieces in her accolades. The one that comes to my mind, of course, was Lindsay Lohan's movie Mean Girls. And Catherine's daughter was one of the actors in the group.
Well, since you bring it up, Ivy, what you should know is Erin's also an amazing writer, and her award-winning fringe play Meet Cute from a couple of years ago is just going on tour in its high school edition with Roseneath Theatre, and is touring all across Ontario high schools and community centers. So.
Actually, I have seen her daughter Erin do stand-up, and Catherine was just saying that her award-winning fringe play, what was it called?
It's called Meet Cute, and it's the high school edition that she's done that's going on tour.
And it's going on tour.
It's about consent. It's very good.
Okay, and if you want more info on that, talk to Catherine at the intermission. Her daughter's very good. I've had her at events before doing stand-up comedy, and she's very funny. And Catherine's other CD called Celtic Cat is also going into the raffle prizes. So let's kick off now. This is what everyone's been waiting for, and our first performer will be Trevor Trower. Many of you know, and I can't say it more than enough, because really, how could you kick this guy out? And they kicked him out for being a rhyming poet in Teo. He hails from Wales initially. He has traveled the world with Air Canada. He writes poetry and prose. He is hilarious and sometimes a bit naughty with his poems. He didn't bring any of the naughty ones apparently, but in this issue he has he's got some poetry, and in our next issue he will have some prose. Give it up for Trevor, everyone. Don't forget to get his autograph.
Yeah. Well, Ivy, you're much too kind. It's such an honor, though. Thank you very much, Ivy.
You're welcome.
It's a beautiful, beautiful magazine. I'm going to tell you the story. It's a little poem I wrote, and it's in here, in this book. It's called Diversity and Unity. We seem to hear those words a lot. In our great land, that's what we've got. And people from each and every place have sought our shores, this land to grace. The finest nation to which we contribute the best we can, without dispute, one law, one flag, have stood the test, from diverse lands have come the best. And here together in peace and free, make our home and live in harmony. Each of us proudly, with hand on heart, proudly swear to do our part, to be the best that we can be, with honor, pride, and fidelity. We make this land an ever fine place to be, across Canada from sea to sea to sea. Look closely at our Parliament, all hues and types are represent. Here, safe from tyrants' evil force, we freely share critical discourse. No cruel oppression rules our life, no spiteful fundamental strife. We thank our God that we can be united in our diversity. Thank you. I thought I'd do something a little different for you. I hope I don't sound too nervous, but I'm not really nervous, it's just that, well, you know, I just find it a little bit odd. Talking in front of all these clever people. Well, here's one called Cuckooed. She was tall and slender, with lightsome hips, with gorgeous eyes and sexy lips. She'd 2 boyfriends who loved her true. To give one up she never would do. One owned a cottage, mortgage-free, small enough for 2, big enough for 3, worked as a teacher at the public school, dressed real smart, never played the fool, proposed quite often and she never would say yes, though we wooed her with gentle tenderness. The other man, Harry, he loved to dance, got to see that girl at every chance, took her to shows and the all-night clubs, they played and frolicked in his new hot tub. Things went along nicely, she had 2 in hand, both quite different, you understand. One kind and secure and had a good job, the other a clown, pushed up but suave. It always happens when fooling around. She missed her period, Harry went to ground. That's the advantage of having 2 beaux, the good one stays, the bad one goes. So she takes the teacher off to bed and 2 weeks later, the pair got wed. Moved into his cottage, big enough for 3, and all lived together happily, quite happily. But every so often, teacher worked late. Along came Harry, swinging on the gate. She'd invite him in, for old time's sake, and take him upstairs for a little piece of cake. If the husband knew, he'd sure be pissed, but a slice off the cut loaf's never missed. The moral of the story, and I've seen it every day, the prettier the girl, the more she wants to play. It may not be true. It may not be true. I don't know. Let me see if I can find something. Oh, and I'm just going to tell you one more, and then I'm going to go away. On the summer grass, long years ago, I watched the night sky drama flow. It was dark, the moon not up as yet, the stars were bright, the sky was jet. I stared at all the twinkling lights and shooting stars across the sky. I reminded of what I'd been taught and tried to count those flashing by. As a child, I'd been told that God created all that space and filled it up with pretty stars to clothe the dark the night embrace. And when a person passes on, their soul departs from earthly cares and finds a resting place above on one of our God's heavenly flares. The reason for this should be clear. Their private spaceship in the sky, so they can visit with their friends who also claimed a star on high. So when you see a shooting star swoop across the heaven above, think on it just might be a lost soul looking for one they love. That's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trevor. Let's give it up for Trevor Trower one more time. And you know, he doesn't usually come across as nervous, but I think it's just, there's so many new faces here tonight, and that last poem was absolutely gorgeous. Now, next time we have a large event, he will have to bring a few of his funny ones that make fun of the royal family I think he's trying to keep it secret. There's quite a few that make fun of the Brits. I'm sure the Welsh and the Scottish could get on with that. So our next performer will be Dave Taylor, who's been an ardent supporter of the Lit Cafe for many, many years, which is the event that I ran, and about 50% in this room are from there. And he always said, oh, no, I don't read, I don't write poetry. And then one day, after about 3.5 years, he all of a sudden read a poem. And it was like, Dave, what are you doing? Because they're really good. And so this is his first time being published, and his stuff's really good. Give it up for Dave Taylor.
Thank you very much, Ivy. Ivy was very nice way of saying that I'm a poetic nobody. And I don't deserve to be on the stage with local people and national people, international people in poetry. So I'll do my little bit and I'll get out of here as soon as you allow me to. I don't know. I submitted a couple of poems. They chose a couple. I'll just read two briefly right now. I don't know what inspired this first one, but it came out somehow, or something came along the line, whatever it was. It's called A Lover's Will.
Yes.
May my last kiss warm your red lips. Let my last sight be your smooth hips. And lay me in a warm, soft place, so I can dream of your sweet face. But last but not least, my last breath, whisper your name before my death. And let the angels by my side soothe your fears and be your guide. Now, my musings on poetry are just my own, and whatever they are, with the rhyming verse, whatever you look at it, or whatever you want to think about it. But I submitted one called Poetry, and it got in the magazine, so I'll just share it with you briefly. It's a short one as well. Poetry. Some say there is no time to fix the unheard rhyme, or as lines stacked in lonely rows in libraries lost to downloads. Have the birds stopped singing? Does the moon not glaze the lover's trail? Our silent canon rots on shelves, while we know too well ourselves to confess our sins and watch the sacred ambers dim. Can we confess our ways to them to get our books on shelves again? Our lives seem all too much on screens to read and ponder things that mean.
And he says he's not a good poet. Give it for Dave Taylor. Our next performer will be Josie Di-Sciascio Andrews. Did I say it right? Or is it Di-Sciascio? And she is not only an incredible supporter of the arts, she's fluent in Italian, French, and of course English. She's a teacher. She's been writing for different Italian magazines throughout the 905. She's had numerous publications published. The poems in this issue are from her latest collection called Jar of Fireflies. And she also recently won an award from for something to do with an Italian magazine.
It was for a history book that I did.
Oh, was it the
All the Italians created that.
Yes, I was at that launch. She's also a writer of nonfiction. How the Italians Created Canada was a book that she did about 8 years ago, and I went to the launch, and that recently just won an award. And this is a secret, but I'm going to give it out. She thinks that and I actually believe her, Conrad Black stole parts of the idea. No. But no, seriously, it's an unbelievably well-researched book. And she's also she has another book about hockey moms and the issues of abuse when people are, with children in the hockey environment with teenagers. So she's not only a poet, she writes nonfiction. Give it up for Josie Di-Sciascio Andrews.
Thank you, Ivy. And I just have to explain all the time about my history book. It was in a collection in a heritage series for Canada. So they have the whole gamut of all the different ethnic groups, and I just was chosen to write about Italian history, but they all have the same title: how the Scots created Canada, how the French created. I did ask the publisher, wow, this is very presumptuous, but it was just the collection. It said chapters. When Ivy came over to my place one evening to ask me to submit some poems, I tried to choose two that reflected my poems about Oakville and the 905 experience. So my first poem is from A Jar of Fireflies, also by Mosaic Press. And it's called Summer's End in the Gardens of Bronte Pier, where I walk very often. Another August of bitter green foliage surprises us with its spill of crab apples on sidewalks. Innocent exuberance hitting reason hard. In garden patches, the bruise of echinacea is bleeding purple hues into shades of dusk. Galaxies of black-eyed Susan clusters aim their tarantula gazes towards space. Mounds of multi-optic nuclei centering in on the cohesion of golden petals, naively prepping themselves to an ochre wilt. The skin of things inches forth into the clarity of evening, undaunted by the fear-mongering mantra of wasps, the overcrowded meccas of fruit flies hovering over the nectar of overripe fruit. It is all so scientific, so purposeful, this gratuitous, lustful reprieve of life's slow bloodletting, hypnotically easing the world to a fade. Always the damned circling of mosquitoes in the dark under the crescent tilt of one more harvest moon, blanching the lake's never-ending heave of silverfish waves. Again, the wind is coaxing nightly processions of sailboats back to the harbor. Sailors, silent and staunch like doges, are tying ropes to masts, dropping anchors in this little Venice laguna, where shadows and treetops are my only cupolas, the sun's remnant pyrotechnics my only cherubim, rimming the benevolent architecture of clouds, setting the random stone throws of stars into effigies of gods. On the rocks, the lighthouse is cutting acute angles into the water, its constant throb mirroring the perfect geometry of my heart, with its telltale alphabet strewn into the torpid pull of the crepuscular void. Thank you. And there is one other poem in the Artis that I actually wrote. I usually write on location. I bring my pad with me everywhere. And it's called Saturday Night Afternoon Closing Time at the Upper Town Mall Center. I didn't put that in there, but living in suburbia, actually, I don't really have a lot of time to write because I teach core French full time, but I have all these ideas. Living in the suburbs is very surreal, and surrealism happens very often when I look at certain landscapes. And Dali comes to mind, but De Chirico is an Italian painter that I really, really like, and some of his images come to me, especially at sunset. At 6 o'clock, the mall's parking lot is eerily De Chirico-esque. Amped to the max, the sun has bleached all pavement to a bone. And evening begins to fill the angles of arches and doorways, lonely sprockets protruding their functional purposes from large empty walls. One by one, cars are pulling out from the yellow delineated spaces that were abuzz all day with spasmodic comings and goings. Emptied, the plaza unmasks its savanna face of soiled, parched surfaces. Beside the trash bins and concrete planters, wind is blowing manes of ornamental trees, exotic grasses, tropical begonias. Screaming crowds of seagulls are hovering upon the remnants of human harvest, the frenzied food gatherings and markets, commerce of goods, elixirs, potions, scents, and face paints for matings, the accoutrements of survival. For one more day, one more cycle on the paved landscape of this civilized wilderness. In a precise clockwork trickling, everyone has gone home for the night, recoiled to their habitations, strung like leaves on branches of 1,000 lamplit streets. I am left here alone to observe, the animal in me finally free to roam unimpeded from the rightful entitlement of the herd. Solitude, respite of the human, alone with a dream of the original idea of the possible, that I am one, that I matter, that I am not replaceable, that I am not obsolete. Thank you so much.
That final line, I am not obsolete, is what got that poem in the magazine. It's gorgeous. Give it up for Josie Di-Sciascio Andrews. So we've got just a couple more performers, and we'll do a short intermission, and then we'll have about 5 performers for the second portion. Our next performer will be Laurence Hutchman, who is also the husband of Eva Kolach Hutchman. He has an artist profile interview in this issue and 1 poem. He will also have another poem or 2 in the next issue. Laurence has a PhD and hails from, he's taught at universities and writing centers all over the world. If you read the interview, it's very interesting regarding his last collection, which was released by Black Moss Press. And what struck me about it particularly was how poignant it was in the fact that it was poetry, but it was historical nonfiction. And it's an amazing collection. If you read the interview, you can contact Black Moss or Laurence himself in order, but it's regarding the, he moved here from Ireland back when he was about 5 years old, and the area in Toronto called Emery at the time was full of immigrants, and it recounts how Toronto built up, and essentially now here we are 50 years later, and even Oakville's very different. And the cover actually on the book itself is his painting. I did not know he painted. His wife is an artist, and also he has in the school there, he's got his painting up in the library. So he's a man of few words, but when he speaks, they are poignant. Let's give it up for Laurence Hutchman.
So many mics up here. What do I choose?
I know. I keep wondering that myself, actually.
One North American Grain Show was behind Price is Right or Truth or Consequences. I should be a band.
You're also... Speak quietly. I struggled with this interview.
Okay.
There, now we can hear him. Okay.
So I chose the right microphone.
Yes.
Welcome everybody. This is a great gathering tonight. Launching of the Artis. I think this is going to be an important magazine for Oakville, the 905 area. I'd like to congratulate Ivy Reiss and her editorial team for putting together this amazing magazine.
Yes, and we'll talk about that more next.
And also for providing such a spectrum of entertainers tonight. The looking forward to hearing the poems of Robbie Burns and the other performers tonight. Okay, I'm going to read first the poem from the Artis. It's a beautiful cover. That's one of Eva's paintings. There's a story behind this poem. There's always a story behind a poem. Sometimes several stories. I was in France the last night of my trip. I'd attended a conference in Angers, and I decided to go to the Louvre. And I got there and it said, in French, it says, you know, two-thirds of the museum is closed tonight. And I said, oh shoot, I won't be able to see everything I wanted to see. And on the way up the stairs I said, that's totally ridiculous. You couldn't even see 1/3 of the Louvre in 1 month. So I decided that I
agree with that statement. I tried.
So I decided, in my spontaneous sagacity, I would head straight for the 18th century Dutch room. You know, maybe pause at the medieval statues of the 13th, 14th century on the way. So I looked at the paintings, and often I'm inspired by paintings and write poems called ekphrastic poems. And because poems are very closely related to art, and they have this story or several stories behind it, and I decided to, I didn't write at the time. I went home, had an early morning flight, but suddenly at 3 in the morning I woke up and that painting kind of appeared on the wall. I thought I was back in the Louvre again, you know, in that beautiful room, that 18th century room with the Vermeer and the Frans halls and those beautiful Dutch artists. My mother's Dutch, you know, so I have this kind of Dutch gene painting in my being. So I wrote this poem based on Vermeer. A dentelier. Bent over your lace, everything in your body draws me toward your hands. I can feel the tension as you pull the 2 strands of thread. The way you bend is your inclination to thread the form of fabric. Your cheeks and smile, if it is a smile at all, are directed to the point in the sewing of the blue cloth. So I observe you concentrating on the point of the pattern you make. I feel the motion of your hands, forearms, shoulders threading your life, forgetting about children, family, history, weaving them through your hands. How Vermeer has poised your eloquent fingers, your needle suspended in perfect tension. I look at you in that golden white dress. The blue fabric is so tactile, I could run my finger over it. Lace maker, you spin fabric out of yourself. Draw me into the flowers of the sun as you float there, alive to the graceful interaction of work and life. Thank you. Next poem is about milkweed, weed. Not that weed that's legal now, but don't smoke milkweed,
You can
please.
buy it at the store. The milkweed supplements.
Milkweed supplement,
Right,
okay.
it's good for the liver. After tonight we may need it.
So we're often attracted to flowers. Milkweed's a kind of a special Ontarian thing, you know. And if you didn't have milkweed in the Maritimes, I missed milkweed. I missed that wonderful kind of explosion of weed that kind of comes out of itself like a kind of miniature Liberace. Milkweed. You all know what milkweed is. Do you have milkweed in Scotland? No.
You don't know what it is.
You celebrate the thistle, though. What's with that?
Small prickly thing.
Small prickly thing, okay. Now, this is about milkweed. Milkweed. A 13-year-old boy in the ravine lifts the milkweed pod through mauve sky upward, releases seeds to the moon. The weed, not flower, not jack-in-the-pulpit, but rough skin, nodules, bumps, hard metacarpal, faded puce, mole fur, velvet ridged, a broken boat. Once in public school we drew the pod until it became 1,000 things. A clown-striped banana, a green-beaked parrot perching in the wind, or a mouth opening, revealing soft down skin with tiny seeds that resembled delicate Japanese prints. The pod breaks open, launches its seeds, the hummingbird's tail, comet blue light, like decorations of an Irish Christmas tree. When blowing in the wind, they dance, circles rise, spin, and drop jazzy rhythms, words rising, rushing, domestic Sputniks, playful gyroscopes, drifting stars. At 13, I flip open its coarse, green-tufted skin among tall, frosted grass. They float up a ladder of lace, space pods, spiraling through the mist toward the moon, their own Milky Way.
Ivy.